he was a doofus. That's the only way I could, my take on the day was this guy is a goofball. How is he doing this job? I have no idea. And I finally wrote him these expense checks he would send me. He would give me these expenses, and I'd have to write the money. It wasn't my money, but I still was like, dang, he's partying, he's entertaining, he's a big shot, he's having fun, and he's an idiot. And I wrote him a check for a commission that was bigger than my salary. And I quit the next week. I said, I'm out. And so my wife was 6 months pregnant. I quit this corporate job and then I didn't realize I lost my insurance. I was a total idiot. I was like 27. I quit the job. I took a job as a sales guy making 1/3 the salary. I have no idea why I thought that was a good idea. 1/3 the salary. And of course I got fired because I sucked. And it turned out that this guy wasn't as bad. He wasn't as much of a goofball as I thought. It turns out there was something to the sales thing.
Hi and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project Manager podcast for Sunday the 23rd of July 2023. This is your host Nigel Creaser, and today I've got a second part of my chat with Ken Stearns, the guy with a jar. But first, a little word from a sponsor. I am delighted to welcome on a couple of affiliates that I've been working with and alongside for the show today. I'll talk about one now and I'll talk about one at the end. So the first one is Online PM Courses. Dr. Mike Clayton, should I say, is a guest I had on the show back in 2019. We were talking the other day about that. It's a little while ago now. And he has a raft of courses on his website, Online PM Courses, from PMP studying through to a fast start in project managers to a kind of individual leadership skills or latest things on AI, all very well researched. And Mike's delivery, you see some of Mike's delivery on YouTube, on his YouTube courses that he does. Really good and really knowledgeable guy. If you want to have a look at the website and if you use the link, just nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, that'll take you along to it. Any that you decide to buy, I'll get a kickback on. So thanks, Mike, for coming on board, and hopefully you guys out there, if you want to build up your skills, obviously with all this training, if you're PMP or any other continuing professional development stuff, you can use that. So get on there and enjoy. Thank you. By the way, that address is www.nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, all lowercase, all one word. Yeah. I was going to start. I was kind of going to go a little bit, jump back a little bit, and then probably jump forward a bit more. Then a little bit about we kind of started touching a little bit on mental health, and so obviously you went over to Asia. Before that, Midwest. I'm from the UK. Where's the Midwest?
Yeah, it's the Midwest, smack dab in the middle of the country. So you've got you've got New York on one side, California on the other, and New York and the coast, right? The whole eastern coast line, all the way down to Florida, right? Maine, which is basically Canada. Then New York is kind of a third of the way down, and then Florida obviously goes all the way down to the bottom. And Chicago used to be called the second city. And
so Chicago, where you grew up then?
Grew up right next to Chicago, in a small suburb. And small city, a town just north of the city, and Midwesterner. So it's the Midwestern thing. I think if you're American, what that would imply for you, like what it means, and I'm sure there's a relativity in the UK and other parts of the world. It's the heartland. So it's the farming. It was the original. I mean, California became the real producer of a lot of fruits and vegetables, but corn, wheat. the stuff that fed America and drove the engine, and still to this day for a lot of the world, is the Midwest. And there's that farmer work ethic thing.
The Iowa and places
Yes.
like that in that sort of central area.
Yes.
For me, watching Field of Dreams or watching
Yeah.
Star Trek and seeing stuff like that where people are in Iowa and things like that. Yeah.
It's a real thing, man.
So
That's what
that
Iowa
that
looks
makes
like.
sense.
It's just cornfields.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things I look at, obviously from the movies and things like that, and see the American. I think if I ever get over there, it's one of the areas that kind of the big skies that appear to be there, and kind of just experience that amount of like no hill or do you know what I mean? Just that amount of sky sort of thing.
Yeah.
Quite interesting to do. So when you were doing that and kind of you obviously got into your insurance career and your corporate career, what were you doing? What were you planning to do, and how did you get into that career that you ended up in?
Yeah, it was kind of a fun. I was when I was in college, it was the Jimmy Carter era. So this was, I think, trained as maybe early Margaret Thatcher time, and it was a recession, right? It was a recession. It was a depression.
Yeah, 79. She
Yeah.
was 79. I think Carter was just around that time.
Yeah, just around that time, right? So and the only way to get a job really out of college was to become an accountant. Like if you got an accounting degree, you would get a job guaranteed. No matter the recession, doesn't matter the economy, you'll get a job. So I didn't know any better. I signed up for accounting because I saw all the marketing guys were still around the fraternity 6 months later, and all the accountants were gone. Literally had jobs before the semester ended. So it's like the story of two worlds. Everybody else in the business community, business degrees, were still hanging around 3 months after summer started, right, was over. So they were still there the next year. Yeah. And all the accountants were gone 3 months before school ended. So get an accounting degree. So anyway, I'm an accountant. I end up in California. I'm working for Kenwood Stereos. And if you know this brand, this old Kenwood stereo brand, it had big in the day of car stereos. Right, and home stereos.
They had good separate units. They were really good. The one my brother had one. It was a fantastic stacked unit, and it was a incredible amp, a great sound.
Great, right. And I worked in the distribution warehouse, and there was a sales guy there, and I was in charge of petty cash, and I would reimburse people for first expense reports, and I'd tracked bonuses for the salespeople. And I had this one sales guy. He was a doofus. As the only way I could, my take on the day was this guy is a goofball. How is he doing this job? I have no idea. And I finally wrote him these expense checks he would send me. He would give me these expenses, and I'd have to write the money. It wasn't my money, but I still was like, dang, he's partying, he's entertaining, he's a big shot, he's having fun, and he's an idiot. And I wrote him a check for a commission that was bigger than my salary. And I quit the next week. I said, I'm out. And so my wife was 6 months pregnant. I quit this corporate job and then I didn't realize I lost my insurance. I was a total idiot. I was like 27. I quit the job. I took a job as a sales guy making 1/3 the salary. I have no idea why I thought that was a good idea. 1/3 the salary. And of course I got fired because I sucked. And it turned out that this guy wasn't as bad. He wasn't as much of a goofball as I thought. It turns out there was something to the sales thing. Like it wasn't that easy. Like he had some magic.
That easy,
it wasn't that easy. So I got fired from the next job too. So it really wasn't that easy. And then I ended up with a job of last resort, which is an insurance guy. And it was it was a modified insurance agent. It was kind of like, I think in the UK you've got some of this where you go to the corporate and you work with the corporation and then you help the employees kind of sign up. And I was doing this kind of benefits kind of stuff. And I should have got fired from that job, Nigel. I had a side story on that, but I should have got fired. I didn't. Like it was just like the paperwork didn't get there in time, and then I got lucky, and I made a sale and another sale, and I survived. And then I ended up, becoming pretty good. I got another job in insurance. I got another job, so I was getting pretty good. I had some good experience, and it was 2000, and early computers, early internet, and I answered an advertisement to go overseas and to work. And they were looking for this particular insurance set. skill set. So I couldn't be more accidental in I was the least intentional person on the planet. Just going from one gig to the next. Intentionally that I was trying to move up and I was trying to get better jobs and better salary. All that intentionally for myself, doing things. But, man, I had no magic plan. I had no master plan. Just get this job. And honestly, I look at this, 10, 15 years in that job, I was really just showing up every day. No thought about next year or what I'm going to do when I'm 70. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned in the last, year and a half that I've been on the road since I quit corporate, almost year and a half, 4 months, is just the intentionality of being more aware of what's going on in my life, being more aware of the surroundings, and having a plan. And I was a planner. The weird part was I'm a thinker. I'm a planner. But I look back and I'm like, I was an idiot. So it's a tough pill for me to swallow, honestly. I was not intentional, and I didn't have, grace for other people. I didn't have grace for myself. Now it's I could be in a bit of an evangelist, and I hope people can, hear the story and go, am I that person too? And how do I change?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that change and about that. Obviously, the jar. They were, and I don't know if that's a lot. I think a lot of people I've seen in different contexts. I think. And there's a TV show that I watch on about people making big changes in their lives, being in the corporate career, and quite often I see these things where people will be, and it's the extreme end of things where someone goes, where they kind of move into a hermit sort of behaviour, and or move the whole family away and just drop a corporate career, become self-managing and kind of live on an island or in the middle of a jungle or in the middle of somewhere in Iceland as a farmer or something like that. And there's a little echo of what you've done from that kind of thing, of kind of like, I want out, I want something, that's what I'm going for. And it was kind of, it sounds to me, and again, as if it was the step away was the key thing, rather than you needed an excuse to step to something, and that something was the jar. And what you've got the Jar Foundation, which you mentioned on your website there off the back of that, and it's focused on improving mental health resources and reducing the stigma around mental health illness. And we talked about earlier about you were nearing your burnout. I was off for 5 months with burnout, and I think I've been in a situation before where it's funny because when I was ill, I set up some counselling, went through it, and the interesting thing is a few years before I had a the way I was using it, my boss had come to me about something had changed that the customer had done. I'd been spending ages to do something, and I just blew up. I was using fuck as a consonant, and it just, and I just didn't tear a shred off him. I wasn't having a go at him, but just generally just blew up.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Well, get some time." And I went out and I just sat in the car and I cried my eyes out for half an hour because I thought, I've just lost my job. What the hell am I going to do? How am I going to look after the family? All that coming through.
It's brutal.
Took a couple of weeks off, spoke to the doctors, depression, anxiety, whatever, and kind of had 2 weeks off. And so, right, I need some counselling. I recognise the fact that I need to do it, and I had my thing. I tried to do some remote stuff and it didn't work. So sort of email stuff which didn't work for me.
Oh, that's not going to work.
And then that list, that task was on my task list to do. Right, sort out counselling. Until 3-4 years later, it was because a lot of it was the build-up of the lockdown and pandemics. Yeah. That building up of that additional emotional drain on all of us.
Yeah.
And that was when I eventually booked some counselling and actually did what I need to do. And I don't know if it's something that, and if others hear that before, whether they've been through the same. And in that you get to a point where you will reach that burnout peak and pop, but it's not that extreme. You take a break. You have maybe you go off on your 2-week annual leave. You decompress
Yes.
and then you come back up. Enough, and I think there is that constant up and down over a cycle of life, and then all you need is something in your personal life or something global like we have there, which is unprecedented, that just fills up that well that you have. You have or a bottle or whatever, a glass of that can be filled, and once it gets overfilled, there's nothing you can do about it. And I don't know if that echoes in it. You can hear the echoes in there of anything that you went through, and whether that's the kind of thing that you see when trying to help other people with improving that visibility of mental health.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I mean, the interesting part was when I was on this one role, a series of jobs that just got increasingly more important to the company, and then ultimately more line of sight for global people, regional people, and these are big contributors to the business. So the pressure is there for everybody, not just the people in the country, but people in the region, and then the shareholders are looking at this stuff. So there's a lot of eyeballs on what you're doing.
Yeah.
And when I came out of that role, and then I got parked in like the children's playground, right? And just to sit there and to watch the swing go by and just kind of take deep breaths, and I didn't really have much work. I was PTSD. I mean, I was you, right? It was like I was sleeping 5.5 hours a night for I don't know how many years, and it was totally normal to sleep 5.5 hours. And it's crazy. It's not remotely enough sleep. But I thought that was like a badge of courage that I could do that. And I went like a maniac. I was so totally lost in the job, and to be that person, to be that role, to play that part in the play. And I played that role very well in the play. I was a great actor. And when the lights went out and the stadium was empty, and I was in that different job, I was like, dang. Looking around, these people are sick, man. That was sick. What was I doing? I was like, I start realizing what regular people do. And I realized for sure I was depressed, and I was for sure PTSD from work, and just the aggressiveness of people, right? The careers, the different people looking for this or that from people, and how they want to use you, and at the end to have a chance to reflect on it was quite powerful, and for me, to reflect on it. And I think that was probably my moment. I didn't even think about therapy at the time. I mean, I was I've never had suicidal ideations from like being depressed or being down. So I didn't have that feeling where I needed to go find help, like there was a crisis. A crisis. I thought it was something that I would just basically kind of just get, over time I'd kind of heal myself. And picking up guitar, starting to write, going to the street with a camera and just getting lost and, not thinking about myself. And so, those I think are, real things we can do. And this word is a word it was not in my vocabulary 2 years ago, even 18 months ago. But being intentional, and I just encourage the listeners to, if you don't know what it means, I'm not even sure I know what it means, right? Just go Google it, and it's it's doing things with a sense of understanding why you're doing it and how it fits into your life, and how it fits into the lives of the people you love, you care about. What are you doing, and how does that impact? And hopefully you're doing things intentionally. Ultimately, what comes out of that, at the end of that equation, is you're doing things that are intentionally good and healthy for you and the people you love. And they're good for people around you. They don't take advantage of it. You're intentionally a good human is what you become. And if you're not intentional, you're not really aware or thinking you're just doing. In a way, right? You're just going through the motions. And I think with your own personal corporate life for people, for the listeners, make sure that what you're doing fits into your plan and fits into what you want to be doing. not just it's a job and it's this job and it's the next job and it's the job that pays the bills. Got to do that. I got mad respect for anybody showing up to pay the bills and sucking it up to do that. But if you start to be intentional with your life outside of that a bit, you'll bring about the change to get yourself into a place where you can be more aligned.
Yeah, I think that intentionality is kind of something that I've had different discussions at different times, and I don't think I'm there myself with it entirely.
Yeah.
I got it, kind of was looking for something when I wasn't very well, and I was reading stuff on Ikigai, which I'm sure you'll have picked up,
Yes.
having been over in Asia, and I liked the concept of that
So great.
looking at it and it's understanding where you are in those dimensions in what you're doing or what you're doing as your hobbies and things. I think it's really, really useful to reflect there, and then actually that intentionality can
That's a good place to
stem
put that.
from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
try to intentionally move yourself into those boxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Where do you
And-
want to be? Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You say you might be really
can't-
good at something and you're getting paid, but you might not be happy.
Oh yeah, I was terribly, I was fucking
Yeah.
good at it though. I mean, I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
damn good at it.
And that Ikigai diagram, then when you look at that zone where you are in that, where you're really good and people will pay for it, and then you sit there and go, well, actually, it doesn't give me joy, and it doesn't. I don't see it adding value to society. You can see why the description. I can't remember the description. I've got it here somewhere because I took
Yeah.
it down off the wall the other day.
I had
and
it-
I
I
can't
had
remember
it
what it actually said
printed
on it.
Yeah, I had it printed up for quite
And
some time as well on my whiteboards.
Yeah.
I had it stuck. I printed it out and stuck it up there.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to get that middle zone, very hard.
Oh,
Without
It's-
it's quite a significant change to what's going on in your life, and quite a significant help with it. And I think it's a great place to strive to be, and with it, like you say, with intentionality, try to move towards that.
yeah.
Because I remember something with our. I do judo. It's one of my
Okay.
things for training, and I do running, and in all cases when you're talking to coaches, they talk about the fact if you go onto a judo mat and you go to a training session and you go there and you'll do some set stuff that they'll get taught, but then you'll go in the free practice
Yeah.
where you're fighting each other, and it's always said to me that when you're doing that, to be thinking about what are you doing that day in that session. Are you trying to do a certain kind of throw? Are you trying to set up that throw?
okay.
Are you trying to, rather than just do as if it was a fight, actually go, right, this is what I'm practicing today,
Yes.
and just do that in that, unless there's something set by the coach specific. If it's your own free practice stuff, you kind of do that intentional. And the same with running and training for a marathon. If you just go out and do what they call junk miles, whilst they can be enjoyable and they can feel like you're doing something, if you're training for something,
Yeah.
looking at that specific thing is and what you want to do and what you want to get out of that training session, again, is intentionally doing it, isn't it?
Yeah. That does help bring the kind of definition, and I think on how people can use it into focus.
Yeah, it's I think it's a powerful word, intentionality, and if you've got it in your career, I had Laura Chattington who I talked to, and she was out this week. She's talking about activating your career and how we just drift along in our careers, and maybe drift from project to project, like we talked about, and not actually go, right, where does that next project taking me? Is that advancing my career? Is it advancing my learning? And actually doing you, and like you said with your job, you weren't intentionally choosing these different jobs, were you? You weren't choosing them to go, right, that's going to lead me to
No.
the place of where I want to be.
No, and I took jobs I should probably not have taken.
Yeah,
On
yeah, and
hindsight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in hindsight for sure. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that advice. Of that she gave you. Very interesting. Another
Yeah.
way of like that intentionality. Like I said, it's a word. I'm Nigel. I'm still kind of growing into
Working
it.
with.
Yeah, and just realizing that what I did was pretty and there was actually the word was this guy looked at what I did. And he said, "Man, you've been very intentional." And I was like, "Oh, what is that?" like,
Yeah.
I didn't really, and then but he was like pointing out. He's like, "Well, like these business cards are crazy. Like you would have thought that through. Like that's you were really thinking." I was like, "Yeah. Is that what you do?" I did because I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, it is kind of fun. I think again, for people sitting in their car and listening and kind of trying to apply some of these ideas in your life. I think it is, like you said, that next project, how I finish this project up, who I work with, how I go into certain meetings. What do I want to get out of that? What am I going to get out of this meeting? Or maybe you do want to go into a meeting and just practice it. Maybe you do want to go in and practice a drill in a meeting.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
well, it's you have a situation where you're delegating and you're coaching team members and you have them running a meeting for you. That's about practicing it. It's about them doing it. It's about them being in a safe space to get it wrong, running a staff meeting, running those sort of things. Those, but again, we don't. We're kind of you say we'll wander into a meeting that we've been invited to, and not go right. Okay, what's this meeting about? What do I want out of this meeting? I've learned to become a little bit belligerent now in the basis of I'm not going to that. No one's told me what it's about. No one's given me a view of what they need from me or what I'm going to get out of it. If you can't tell me, I ain't going. No, I don't always do it.
Yeah, this is a new thing. I think I look back. My last year, it was basically just there was a meeting on my schedule. I didn't question it. Somebody made it. I showed up in the meeting, and I was probably supposed to make a decision or give direction. Hopefully if I was going to make a decision, I knew in advance. But definitely going to at least give a feedback. Someone's going to show you something, you're going to give feedback but like you said, man, so much of that stuff, I went into a ton of meetings where none of that was there.
Yeah.
And you just walk out of the meeting going, well, okay, I guess I got to be 8 hours somewhere in the office. Might as well be in a meeting chair.
Yeah.
No.
And that's the frustrating thing, isn't it? And that's the thing I think is one of the things that it's you will have done it. You will have run teams of people, and you will have been very focused on how you get the best out of those people. You will have thought about their productivity and how good they get at something out there. And then you will turn up to a meeting, no one's given you an agenda, and you find out you don't need to be there. Or you will set a meeting. You won't apply. And it's something I put in my book is about, and it wasn't my idea. It's Manager Tools podcast that I heard it from. That decision to go. I have an hour to spend.
Yeah.
I can spend an hour doing this, which one of my team could do, and they could do it as good as me with a little bit of 15-minute coaching either side.
Yeah.
And that means I get an hour. Well, I've used up 2, so I get half an hour to spend on something that could benefit the whole team. And if you've got a team of 100 people and you can spend half an hour, that saves them 5 minutes a week, you've got 500 minutes a week being saved out of your team's work, which when you look at it on an annual basis, that leverage in a management role is, for me, is the thing that we forget about.
Oh, interesting, the leverage. I
It's
never thought of it like that.
Yeah, it's just 5 minutes. Kind of sort of questions and conversations I have with people that going, oh, this process doesn't work, it's crap, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. Well, it's only 5 minutes. And I'm saying, yeah, but it's only 5 minutes for you, and it's only 5 minutes for me, and it's only 5 minutes for the 400 other people who have to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, every week or every day. And that's the thing, is 5 minutes is a small amount of time until you have a large number of people doing those 5 minutes. And that's where, for me, that's where where it dumbs down a lot of people's jobs, because they end up doing stuff that is of no value to them. It takes time away from, but it's only 5 minutes, so it's another paper cut, isn't it, that just drags on that energy and drags that, it turns that 7-hour day into an 8-hour, 9-hour, 10-hour day, reduces that sleep from 8 hours to 5.5 hours. And it's those things that do that. It's not the big things that do that, it's the small things that do that, and lots of them.
Yeah, I think the leverage idea is absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on from the manager, making those smart choices. I mean, sure, it's fun to be in the meeting room with the boss or somebody else, but, like you said, if you can send a staff, and in some ways, Nigel, they're probably going to do a better job than you, because they're stepping up, right? They're stepping up.
And your job is to coach them.
And your job is to coach them, so they don't even need coaching the next time.
Yeah, you have to. You, as a manager, you should be finding one or two people who are going to be your replacement, and certainly your deputy when you're on leave. And that's the thing is, and that is what the part of the job is. And sometimes I think we take that protective role of going, and I've seen it in smaller corporations where someone's done such a good job that they've, as a director, they got chosen to leave, and the person who was there, number two, was the person who took over at a lower rate and did it. But that's a testament to their success at coaching that person through, isn't it? Really, I think, and it's kind of
it's pretty good.
And it's crazy how, and again, that's about intentionality. I think about delegation, bringing people on rather than the weekend before your holiday going, who the hell's going to cover for me and mean that I don't have to answer the phone.
It's kind of, excuse me. I think, now that you're kind of describing some of that, I feel like maybe I was a little more intentional than I thought. One of the things I was, because being a foreigner in Asia or in any country, when you're a foreigner as a worker, you're taking, in some view, you're taking a role away from a local person.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of markets, you need expertise in that particular role to get a work visa. Otherwise, the government's not going to let you in. So, I had that expertise. But my role, my comments when I came into every time I came into a country role was basically, look, my job is to fire myself. So my they're like, what's your brief? What are you supposed to do? Well, my first job is to fire myself. Like, that's my overarching role, is to get my ass fired. And the only way I can do that is to make sure one of you lot, or somebody we can't see, is going to take my chair, or take the chair.
Yeah.
And it's not my chair. I'm holding the chair for somebody else. And like, the next person will hold it for the next person. Nobody owns
You're the trustee.
I'm the trustee, and my job is to fire. Like I said, is to fire myself. And there was and that would always kind of get some giggles, right? Because people would be like, "But wait a minute, you got a lot of us want that job. Why would you want to fire? Like it does not compute. Right? That makes no sense. Why would you fire yourself? You just got the badass job. You're not going to quit. What do you And when you explain it, then people are like, oh. Okay, that's your style. Your leadership style is delegation. It's, teaching people everything you know. Okay, interesting. Okay, this is going to be fun. And then this guy's going to try to make sure that maybe the job doesn't even exist. Maybe everybody takes a piece of the chair.
Well, that's it. The thing is you change the job to what it sometimes you can step into roles and they've got such an operational bent and they are operating, and the initial thing is that role is to run that part of the business. And actually what you want to be able to do is that business runs itself and you are able to direct the strategy of that part of the business. So you're not running it, you're steering it. And I think that's just a little and the people are doing it, and the idea should be that you should have more time to think about the future and have more flexibility when something goes pear-shaped in one of those teams' areas, to be able to easily drop everything, easily focus, because the timeliness of the activities you've got on your planner are things you can go, well, that actually, I can shift that to the right. It's important. It's not urgent. I can shift it. I can deal with this urgent and important thing now. Yeah. How often do you see where you've got managers, and I've been guilty of it myself, you've got a diary that's full of stuff and something goes wrong and it's kind of, how the hell do I find the time to actually dive in there? And it's the operational stuff, the rest of it runs. But then you kind of delegate it down to your team and you get them to do it. And I think that's the thing that, for me, it's about that. It's not so much firing yourself, it is changing the job to be that more strategic. And that may end up meaning that you're not needed because the guy or girl above you is doing that strategy. So, right, okay, I've got these guys, they're all brilliant now, they know what they're doing. And sometimes it's just a need for a communication channel there.
Come back.
So it actually varies, I think. You look like you've frozen there.
Come back.
I think
Don't leave
we're
me.
having some interesting recording on this show, where I got bounced out to start off with, and it looks like Ken's getting bounced out because I can't hear Ken at all. I don't know if you can hear me, Ken. I just realised I'll jump in the chat, see if I can use that. Looks like I lost him. So I assume Ken will dial back in a minute. Hello, dude. We're having fun today.
That was a wacky. I thought that was you, and then all of a sudden, it was me. And I don't know, my internet just went dead. I'm hooked up with my phone now, so hopefully this works.
Yeah.
But the internet just.
Yeah. Well, crazy, isn't it?
Oh, well, we're kind of at the close anyway, I guess. So we need a wrap up somewhere.
We are.
Some kind of a wrap.
Yeah. So we've, as we say, we were talking about that intentionality and different things that you were doing, and I don't know how much we'll have recorded, so it'll be there for listeners there. If it seems a bit fractious, this one, I got kicked off once, and Ken's been kicked off once, and we were just saying we've come towards the end of our conversation now, and it's been an interest, and I think. From my point of view, there's a lot of other questions I would have had, but that means we'll have an 8-hour show or something like that.
Yeah.
Whilst I'd enjoy it and you'd enjoy it, maybe our listeners would enjoy it. But we'll probably need to wrap it up now. If there was something that you would kind of talking about the jar and your experience on that, if there's one thing that you would have liked to have said today that you haven't said so far to people out there who are maybe thinking about a big change like you did, or maybe struggling with some mental health issues within their roles or whatever, or stress or that, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think Nigel that everybody's going to go through some mental health issues. So and I have been surprised on the road hearing people's stories, and they've come from, I mean, man, people with beautiful cars, beautiful homes, amazing looking lives on the outside, but they have struggled. I mean, it's just, you can't see mental health, mental fitness, how fit we are mentally. We can't see it until we're tested, and we can't see, the health of our brain. You can see a cancer. You can scan. You can take your blood work and see disease. There's so much physical stuff we can see, but the mental part, man, is evil, right? It doesn't show itself. Mm-hmm. It doesn't show itself to you as well either, or you can't see other people, what they're going through. And, so I think the probably my thing is, look, take care of yourself and, fook the stigma. If you feel like you need to talk to somebody, call somebody. In America, we have a 988 helpline, and it's for mental health, and people can call that and talk to somebody immediately, like crisis moment. And I've done some great podcasts with people on my mental health channel where the innovation around remote therapy is really cool, including group therapy, where you can sign on and you don't have to be the main show. You can sit there and watch 11 other people and a therapist have a conversation around grief or job loss or anxiety. And they have these group sessions where it's a topical, and you just join a topic group and you can kind of hang out. So there's no excuse anymore to not call somebody and not to get involved. And the prices are not crazy. And when you consider what it costs for a simple health check or a dental cleaning, why not invest that in your brain? We go to the gym, we do diets, all that stuff. Take care of your mental health.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I think, I can echo that. And as I say, that my experience of taking on that counselling and taking that time I had, I learned so much about me. I learned how, it was all about giving myself a break, and
give yourself
it was
some grace.
Yeah, exactly. So that little bit of actually, you're okay, you're doing okay, and sometimes we measure ourselves to everyone else. We measure to what we think we need. We measure to the pressure of what our families, our friends, our society, our church or religion. You hold yourself up to standards that can be way higher than you would hold other people to, and other people hold you to, and then you put yourself in that spiral. But it's so hard.
It's real. It's real.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So if people want to find out more, get in touch, have a listen to the jar or whatever, what's the best thing for them to do?
It's just go to the website, thejar.live. So www.thejar.live. You'll get there's actually a prompt in there right now for email. So if you do join the mailing list, we will ping you back part of my book. So your yesterdays, today's, tomorrows. So your kind of your how you look at past, present, and future. That's great. Go there and you can always cancel. We don't really send many emails, so it's pretty low risk. And if we ever do start that up, you just cancel. So get registered, get the free book, and have a poke around the site. We got a couple of the videos up you can see. Got some great YouTube stuff as well. Some fun content we did on YouTube a while back.
Yeah. And I can see there if people have got an interesting story to tell as well, and want to be there, you've got a be a guest button there as well.
Yeah, we got to be a guest. If you want to be a guest and you're in my path, the map is there. Yeah. I think the map, Nigel, should have the jar logo where the van is. I think it should.
So where is the map?
Yeah, it should.
Where
follow
is it?
Ken somewhere.
So it's me not navigating your site very well. Yeah, so if you're in the US and you have an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, have a look on the site and see if I'm going to be in your path.
Yeah. So that was a question I was going to ask. You are still travelling around then?
I'm on city...
At different points around different places.
Yeah, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee right now. Great barbecue country here. They use a dry rub, not a sauce. Blues shows. I was down listening to some music last night, and great part of the country. Great history here. Very interesting culturally, and I'm on city number 71, and interview 230 something.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. So, again, thank you so much for being on the show, Ken. I really enjoyed our chat, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. And good luck with your journeys and all of your chats. And when if you get over to the UK, we'll have to. And if you just end up extending it to Europe, we'll speak to you then as well.
Oh, we'll franchise. Maybe I'll franchise it over somewhere.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Find some other crazy
Look
people
after
to
yourself.
do this. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Ken there. Fascinating. I'm hoping to get on his show at some point myself. So that'll be a really interesting conversation. Next week, we've got another interesting conversation chatting to Kelly McGinley about function and the flow within work. And we kind of delve down into a little bit about volunteer sector project managing, which to me, when you have absolutely no position power over the people doing work with you and for you, it's a very different set of skills you have to use. So, it's a great show. So come along next week, look after yourself, and speak soon. Cheers now, bye. So this is the second sponsor slot today. We have, I use a product called Riverside FM to produce this podcast and do my interviews. It's a really rich and powerful tool. Has a great free layer, but then you can enhance the quality of what you get, some of the features, whether you can get the recording separate. Now, some of you out there may not do podcasting, but if any of you are thinking of doing it, I would recommend it. I find it really good. Even though I'm on one of the lower tiers, the support I get when I need support is great as well. You can live stream stuff. So again, if you're doing stuff with your teams, you may be able to use this. And it kind of works like you've got a studio, you can have a producer, you can have guests, you can have the host, and you can kind of really ramp it up from a comms point of view. Again, it's an affiliate service that they have, and I've signed up with them. Again, the address is, if you jump onto www.nigelcreaser.com/Riverside, and that'll redirect you out to their website with my little cookie on it, so it knows that you've got there. And if you, to be honest, you'll get, there's a free sign up there. If you take on a paid subscription, I'll get a kickback on that. That'd be great. So all these things really help fund further developments of the podcast that I have in my back pocket at the moment. So check it out. If you like it, great. Cheers. So this is my final wrap up. Every week you're going to hear this. You're going to get bored of it, but you can always click next podcast if so. If you have enjoyed it, if you listened to this podcast to the end of this show and you think that was great, I'd love to be able to help Nigel out. There are loads of ways you can do it. The first and obvious way is to share the podcast. Send it out to people. If you know colleagues and friends who'd benefit from it, you think they'd enjoy it, just send them the link. Grab one of the links, or send them to www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts. That's www.nigelcreaser.com/podcasts, and that will push them over to a Linktree link, and it's got all of the different ways they can consume the podcast. If you are feeling generous and have a big bag of cash, you could grab a copy of one of my books. Obviously, they're available in all the usual places and print and digital, again, jump on the website, www.nigelcreaser.com/shop, and that will give you a list of all the different ways that you can contribute and grab copies of the book. Also got links to all my guests' books on there as well, where I get a little bit of a kickback from them. If you are of a sporting mind, I have a number through doing some of my judo and running antics. I've managed to secure a few affiliate links and affiliates there as well. So in there, somewhere in the sponsors page, there's links to those as well. So clicking onto those and grabbing if you're looking to get super fit, then that would be fabulous as well, and I get a little kickback from those. I have a Patreon account. It's patreon.com/sundaylunchpm. So again, you can ping something in there, buy me a coffee or whatever. And finally, obviously the most important is coming back, listen again, because the more of you that come back, the more visibility I get, because there's more times that it's downloaded and all the SEO works and things like that. So yeah, that's it. So if you can help me out, I would be much appreciated. If you can't, don't worry about it. Thank you very much. Cheers now. Bye. Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.